Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things Second Amendment related, firearms, politics, culture, media, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment to like and share this program so that your friends can join in the conversation. Whether you're watching us on Facebook or you're watching us on YouTube, or you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, you name it, please remember, tell your friends so that they can join in the conversation. Also, please take a moment, go to fpcgear.com. It is the coolest place to go and find pro-Second Amendment goodies so that you can show your support for the Second Amendment. Where you're looking at, whether you're talking about T-shirts, whether you're talking about hoodies, whether you're talking about coffee mugs, you name it, we've got it at fpcgear.com. And you'll know that every penny that you spend there goes right back into the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. So, with that said, you know that you can support the Second Amendment, and you can support the Second Amendment, actually support it with resources and look good doing it. That's fpcgear.com. Talking about supporting the Second Amendment, this is always a challenge for me because me being Republican, I know not all of you are, but I'm a Republican. And I'm a Republican not because I believe in Republicans necessarily, but because I believe in the values that Republicans espouse. And it is always a major frustration of mine when I see somebody who is a Republican, who claims to be a Republican, but they don't necessarily follow the values that we as Republicans or that the Republican Party espouses to, including support for the Second Amendment and including things like support for the Constitution. Well, some of you may or may not be aware that there's this thing out there called red flag laws. And these red flag laws, or as they're called, extreme risk protection orders, challenge several different areas of the Constitution. Now, these are, these are laws that actually allow someone to go to court, basically say that you are a danger to yourself or others. By the way, it's an ex parte hearing. You don't get to be there. There's no mental health professional there. But they go to a judge and they basically tell them you're a danger to yourself or others. And then the judge issues an order basically having your guns taken away. Now, I expect the gun grabbers to be okay with stuff like this. They quite frankly, they don't care about your rights. If you are a gun owner, they really do not care about your rights. Your rights mean absolutely nothing to them. But one would think that if you're a member of a party whose base is significantly pro-Second Amendment, believes in the Constitution and the right to due process, because once again, if someone takes away your rights and you don't have your day in court, and when you do eventually get your day in court, you're guilty until proven innocent, that's not due process. So one would think that someone who is a senator from the state of Florida that is a pro-Second Amendment state would know better than to support something like red flag laws. But needless to say, we already know that we have at least one senator who was just recently reelected, recently elected, the junior senator there in the state of Florida. Now the senior, I'll call him senior senator, Mr. Marco Rubio. Well, he's basically introducing a bill that's pro red flag law. Check it out.
All right, Shanice, and Senator Marco Rubio, by the way, is planning to reintroduce his gun violence red flag bill as Congress convenes today. It gives law enforcement the authority to stop people who pose a threat to themselves or others from owning or buying guns. Rubio, along with other former Senator Bill Nelson, first introduced that bill last March after the Parkland school shooting. He says, and I'm quoting here, "We can help keep our schools and communities safe by empowering law enforcement or family members to use the judicial system to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous individuals."
Now, notice in his statement, he doesn't say the mentally ill, because there are for these red flag laws, there's absolutely no mental evaluation, absolutely none. No one has seen a psychiatrist. No psychiatrist no mental health professional. No mental health professional has testified to any of this. We're just taking someone at their word that an individual is a danger to themselves or others. And oh, by the way, this also doesn't include criminals. Notice that doesn't say criminals. It says people who are a danger. Well, understand that people on the left simply think that owning or buying guns makes you a danger to yourself or others. Now, the Firearms Policy Coalition has a long history of being opposed to these red flag laws. And in fact, upon hearing about a lot of this legislation that was being announced, we went ahead and we put out a press release. And I just want you to get an understanding. This is our philosophy around these. So this is why, for those of you who are like, well, but we should support this. This is the reason. These are kind of some of the fundamental reasons why. And I'll read just these two small sections to you. These red flag laws stand for the proposition that people are guilty and can be disarmed unless they can prove their way out of an accusation. In fact, in some jurisdictions, a court may consider evidence of recent acquisition of firearms, ammunition, or weapons as evidence to support the issuance of a red flag disarmament order. In other words, if someone recently exercised their Second Amendment rights, that constitutionally protected conduct could be used to support their being prohibited from possessing firearms, or even lead to a warrant for seizure of their property. The statement continues, as we know all too well, the only real recourse in these cases is for the accused to hire an attorney at the cost of thousands of dollars and hope that the court gives them a fair hearing. Worse, in an ex parte situation, the subject of the red flag order might not even know about the hearing or the order until armed law enforcement officers show up at their home to seize their property or them. Red flag laws are unconstitutional and dangerous, as FPC's own research and countless reports have shown. If the government does not have enough evidence to investigate or charge a person with a crime, or even to hold them for a mental health evaluation, then the government has not met its burden for taking someone's rights and property by force and violence. Now, I get it. Some of you out there saying, well, but come on now, you're exaggerating, right? When you talk about taking someone's property by force or violence, that's got to be an exaggeration, right? No, it's not an exaggeration. A little over a month ago, we reported to you right here about an individual in Maryland who had a red flag, who had an extreme risk protection order issued against him by a family member who was upset with him. And literally other people in the family have already said, look, this was just a family spat and someone went overboard, right? They sent officers to his house. Excuse me. They sent officers to his house, armed officers to his house to take his guns, and they wound up shooting the man to death because he refused to give up his guns. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that, let's be clear. Now, he did pick his firearm back up after the officer told him they were there to take his guns. But the fact is, this was an individual whose only crime was refusing to comply with an unconstitutional order. They were taking away his guns, his right to keep and bear arms, and he had no due process. They were taking away his private property rights. They were taking away his Second Amendment rights. And when he did eventually, if he did ever get to go to court, if he had gotten to go to court, he would have been guilty until proven innocent. He would have had to have a lawyer and or a psychiatrist in order to prove that he was not a danger to himself or others. These are the sorts of laws that Marco Rubio supports. Marco Rubio, and by the way, other Republicans support. Now I know what you're saying. Well, hey, this guy probably was a danger to himself or others. Maybe, I don't know if he was or he wasn't. But here's the thing. It's not just going to affect people who are a danger to themselves or others. You guys have been hurt. You guys heard about what happened. Oh, no, sorry. You guys heard about the 450 cases in the first month that these things were in place in Florida, didn't you? 450 of these were issued, of gun violence restraining orders, extreme risk protection orders, were issued in the first month. 400 of them in one county by one anti-gun sheriff. The same exact sheriff, by the way, who was responsible for the school shooting at Parkland, in Parkland. Same exact sheriff, same anti-gun sheriff. Has been going after, and in some cases, simply someone made a statement on Facebook, and that was enough to have their guns taken away, to have an extreme risk protection order issued against them. Well, I know what you're saying, but Craig, come on. I mean, but these are people who, by what they say, they're demonstrating they're a danger to themselves or others. Really? Really? Are they? Well, what if those individuals aren't a danger to themselves or others? What if they're not? What if it's simply the case where someone else is a danger to themselves or others, and they just happen to be related to them? Check this story from Vermont out.
Is it?
Well, good evening, Mike and Lauren. It's called the Extreme Risk Protection Order, which allows law enforcement to confiscate firearms from folks who pose a danger to themselves or others. In this case, law enforcement is calling it very successful. Crisis averted at Middlebury Union Middle School this week after police say 2 students threatened to shoot another student and others on Tuesday.
With the things that have happened, we take it all serious. It's not a knee slapper anymore.
A conversation overheard by a separate student was reported to the principal, who then tipped off police. A subsequent interview with the 14-year-old suspect would reveal a detailed plan.
Very specific date and time, target, how this was going to happen, where the weapons were going to come from.
That piece of information prompted prosecutors to request an extreme risk protection order. It's part of sweeping gun legislation signed into law in April in response to another foiled school shooting plot at Fairhaven Union High School. In this instance, it allowed for police to confiscate weapons from a relative's home.
You caught that at the very end, right? From a relative's home. So, 2 middle schoolers decide they're going to get together and they're going to hash out a plot to shoot another middle schooler and other people at school. They find out about it. They take in the 2 individuals. They find out what's going on, and they deem that one of them says, well, I'm going to steal these firearms from that relative over there. And so, but mind you, they have the 2 kids now. They have them in custody. Then they go to the relative's house. Let me clarify. First, they go to court and they get an extreme risk protection order, and they go to the relative's house who is not a danger to themselves or others, and they take away their guns. Now, some of you out there may not see that as a serious violation. They may say, well, that's no big deal. Hey, that's making the community safer. No. Let's be clear. What you have done here is these people have done absolutely nothing wrong. You have violated their right to keep and bear arms. You have violated their due process rights because they didn't know anything about this. They didn't even get a chance to defend themselves. You violated the right to unreasonable search and seizure because now you've searched their home. You've gone in, you've searched their home, and once again, for no reason, because once again, they've committed no crime. They're not a danger to themselves or others, and yet you've gone into their home and now you've confiscated their private property. This is the sort of thing that some Republicans, or as I like to call them in this particular case, jackasses in elephant suits, one in particular, Mr. Rubio, has decided that, well, no, yeah, I believe in the Constitution, and yeah, the right to keep and bear arms is a right, but it's not a right. And, if you decide you want to exercise it, well, all your other rights are suspect. That's their attitude. Because they are cowards. Because they don't understand that there's a reason why these rights are enumerated in the Bill of Rights, are enumerated in the Constitution as fundamental rights. They are there because they knew that one day, cowards like Marco Rubio, who are not man enough to stand up for people's rights, would kowtow to the media, to people who don't, the anti-gun left. They would kowtow and cower to them because they don't believe in your rights, because they are more than willing to sacrifice your security for some perceived sense of security. I'm sorry, your liberty. They're willing to sacrifice your liberty for some perceived sense of security. Now, mind you, and I keep telling people this: the borderline shooting, it took place in California, where we have extreme risk protection orders. We call them gun violence restraining orders. The individual's family already knew that the guy was a danger to himself or others, and they didn't do anything. It didn't do anything. All I know is this, is that laws disarming law-abiding citizens do not keep law-abiding citizens safe. They don't. It's kind of like saying, well, you know what? Tell you what we're going to do. In order to keep drunk drivers from injuring everybody else, we're going to take away the right of everyone else to drive legally. So no one else gets to drive because someone may drive drunk. That is their attitude. And that, my friends, is not going to work. That, my friends, is not consistent with the values of the Republican Party. It's not consistent with the values that have made this country great. And Mr. Marco Rubio, sadly enough, you need to sit down and shut the fuck up. That I hate to use that word. I hate to get so vulgar to some of you out there, but I'm sorry. I am pissed because, it's bad enough we have to worry about people who don't care about our rights and our liberty, people on the left, people who know they don't care about our rights or our liberty, who know they don't care about our right to keep and bear arms or due process. But when someone who claims to be a friend, who claims to be an ally, decides to turn coat, well, he can kiss my ass. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. We are the Firearms Policy Coalition, the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.